Plop.
You do kind of look like Plop. You look a little bit like an older Plop.
I'm old man Plop.
That's not bad. Plop's a handsome guy.
That's nice.
He's
Listen.
a handsome guy.
That's nice of you.
And Dan, in the world of Smash, Hungry Box just went off recently. Hey, he fractured his foot in celebration?
Popping off at Smash, which was, I mean, it feels bad. It sucks for him, obviously. But yeah, listen, when you pop off, you gotta pop off. And it doesn't matter what's in the way. And, you know, he said some really beautiful stuff while he was popping off. And I'm sure the x-ray of his foot was equally beautiful.
Was he then like, excuse me, I need painkillers?
I think he was just on the adrenaline high. Though I don't know if you saw the pictures of him in the wheelchair at the airport with his coach. That's some beautiful like coach-player bonding activities, I think.
Well, guess what? I mean, we are live on all of our platforms, and we are here to talk to Steve Arhancet about the LCS franchising. Do you want to say? Do you want to kick off the show there, Josh?
Yeah, sure.
All right, go for it.
I never get to do this. So.
Oh, right. This is not the Nexus. This is the actual. Oh, this is the theScore eSports
this is the
podcast.
flagship brand, and
That's
you
right.
could crash his flagship right now.
So
no pressure.
I will not do that. In fact, instead, I will welcome viewers to the theScore eSports podcast. My name is Josh Burry. With me, we have Daniel Rosen.
Hello.
And Ryan Stratton.
Oh, hey, yes.
On the board. If there's an issue with the audio mix, it's his fault.
It's on me, or with the music, I suppose.
Yeah, I do have an issue with the music, actually. I'd like to lodge a complaint right now.
I think it's really good.
Thank you. Now, I'm super excited because we've got Steve Arhancet, the co-CEO and owner of Team Liquid, on the line here. It's going to be an awesome talk about LCS franchising as well as everything Team Liquid.
Yeah, and I mean, for Liquid, this has been, it's been an interesting period of time. So I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to speak with Steve about some of these things because I think, obviously, franchising in the mix. Had week one of Team Liquid a little bit tumultuous, and I even got the chance to talk to one of Team Liquid's players recently, Lorlo. That was a really interesting discussion. There's a few things that I think I want to ask Steve about when we get him on the line. But why don't we bring him on?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Go ahead. Hello, Steve.
Hello. What's up, guys? How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Happy
Maybe
Friday
better.
to you, sir.
Say it again?
Happy Friday to you, sir.
Yes, happy Friday to you as well.
Although I guess for you, it must be like, it's kind of like the beginning. I mean, I guess esports never sleeps, right? So it's kind of like Friday is good, I guess.
Yeah, I'd say every weekend we have at least a couple teams playing in some sort of event. So there is really no weekend. I maybe try to take half a day Monday off.
Monday, Tuesday used to be, I think, our esports weekend.
Yeah, that used to be the esports weekend, but then everybody got into the mix. Big non-endemic brands announced, I think it was on Monday, and now it's just all week long, baby. Yeah.
And now we've got. Go ahead, Steve.
I said that's how it works.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, indeed. And now, of course, we got LCS franchising that's now in the very early stages. People are looking at the application process. People are applying. This is going to be so exciting to see what happens in November and, of course, next year. Now, I know we're in the week 2, coming off a hard week for Team Liquid, but can we talk about LCS franchising, Steve, and your first thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to give my opinion. Sure.
I think just to start, and I you know, I'm sure this has been said out there somewhere, but I've been going around personally just trying to like ask everyone I can and just say like just straight up, you know, first and foremost, have you guys, has Team Liquid, I guess, submit an application, or I'm not necessarily sure exactly how the process works yet, but you know, are you guys applying, I guess, in the process?
So the application and all of the components of the application were outlined in the post that Riot did, which was really comprehensive in terms of a developer kind of coming out and laying out the architecture of what the franchise might look like. I was actually surprised it was so rich with information, and that application is fairly comprehensive in a handful of different sections. So we're actively working on making that the very best illustration of everything that we've provided to the league, as well as our future plans into 2018 and beyond. So we will be submitting as soon as that's completed.
And when you first seen this application, as you just said, I mean, it might be surprising the fact that they've got so much in here. It's so comprehensive, but when this came out, that franchising is going to happen, was everyone at Team Liquid thinking it's like Christmas morning? It's, you know, a huge celebration, you know, you've got high hopes to be there? Or do you feel it's anybody can get in there right now?
Well, a couple different things. I mean, as far as my emotions with regards to franchise, I think it dates back to my first entry into the esports world. And for those, I guess, 5 or 6 years where I was running an esports team, it was kind of depressing in the fact that esports teams are kind of like agencies, and we represent players, but our main source of sustainable revenue, which is our participation in the leagues that we compete in, kind of ceased to exist. So it was a low barrier to entry in order to start an esports team, as well as difficulty in maintaining a good source of revenue from competing in leagues. I mean, you look at all other professional sports, and the reason why it's a sports team and not just an agency is because they have permanent position within franchises. So on June 1st, when that was announced, it was kind of like, I think, a very iconic, memorable moment in the history for all gamers that enjoy watching other people play, which is, holy fuck, this is now a real sport with a league where there's shared participation and aligned financial interest, and no developer had really done that to date. So I think it was monumentous. So I was very excited about that.
I got to tell you, Steve, it was a pretty big day here for us too.
Holy fuck is an understatement, man. It was fucking crazy.
We were everywhere. We got somebody on we did an emergency podcast. So we just like got a guest. It was Greg Richardson from Dignitas, and that was a heck of a day. And we had already reported that it was happening, so we kind of had some anticipation, but it was still just an insane day. I'll probably never forget that one, for sure.
And there are so many questions left unanswered, man. I mean, I know that we've got to wait until November, and for now, what we should do is focus on the split and then the Worlds. But for someone like, you know, the owner of Team Liquid, I've got to imagine that right now you're probably working tirelessly on this pitch proposal, this application. How much time is this taking out of your day right now? Like, how big of a priority is it for you, Steve?
You know, in order to answer all of the aspects of the application, that's not something that will be best done if I'm the only person working on it. So we've set up project teams within the organization, and we're, I think, by far the largest esports company in terms of overall staff and number of players. So we just have an army of folks that are contributing to all of the content and information that may be required in order to submit the most appropriate solution and answer and proposal within each section. So this is really more, I'm the architect and the designer, and I have so many of our staff that are just working tirelessly on certain sections. So yeah.
And Steve, of course, with Team Liquid, I mean, you've got so many things going on, so many balls to juggle in terms of, I mean, tremendous talent that are doing well and performing. Is there any sort of atmosphere like dragging your feet, a little upset with the team's performance, I guess, in the last few weeks, you know, last split and just this week? Has there been any, have you been dragging your feet about this league thing? Is it a sore spot for Team Liquid?
You know, I have to think of the big picture. We have been in League of Legends prior to even LCS existing in the ESL Pro League when I first started a team called XXX, and then our first sponsor, UNR, and then moving to Team Curse. I mean, it was funny, I looked the other day on the ESL Pro League wiki, and our performance back then against the only kind of remaining teams from that time were CLG and TSM, and we consistently placed third and fourth, you know, and so for 5 years straight, we have consistently produced results in competitive splits. And so, you know, the overall macro view is that we've done a lot, and we're faltering in this past split. And you know, we're week one. There's still a lot of weeks to go in the summer split. So, you know, I think when I think about it, I'm obviously, you know, upset, and I am kind of now more determined to try to find a solution. You know, I'm of the belief that failure breeds thought for innovation. And a great example of that is like our last split. If we had never went to promotion relegation, I don't think we would have ever identified Kane as an opportunity to be a coach for our team. And so sometimes great things come from failure, and sometimes failure is a motivator. And so that's the way that I try to look at it. And of course, I could kind of succumb to a lot of the fear and social pressure associated with our performance. But, I do appreciate that our fans are so angry in a way, that their expectations have been that we should be performing. And when we're not, they're fucking angry, livid, mad, and sometimes cruel. Maybe not our fans.
Steve, I actually want to ask about that, because we didn't see a fantastic week one from this team, and the fan reaction has gone from seemingly, at least from what I've seen, blaming specific players on the team to blaming the management of Team Liquid. And I have to ask you, like, are you seeing these comments, and like, do you feel like there is more that you could have done to prepare this team for this split, or is this just, there were, like you said in a different interview, there weren't a lot of free agents available, and this is what the team was going to be?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of management, there's a group of people that I consider on the management team for our decisions. Ultimately, all that rolls up to me, and I hold responsibility for that. And sometimes I think we have to see through some of the decisions that we made in the very early part of the season. And I also feel like some of the confidence that I've gleaned from the good things that I have not yet seen translated on the stage, but in scrims and just within the team environment, has given me enough confidence to put that roster again into the LCS on the next split. And I think a lot of people, when we went into the spring split before it started, I think a lot of the power rankings like put us somewhere between 3rd and 5th. And on paper, we had a fantastic team. And there are certain qualities of that still ring true. And I think Kane has an ability to kind of identify and fix some of those issues. I can't guarantee that they will happen. All I can say is that we will continue trying and playing our best. I mean, some of our players have like the most games played in solo queue. Our whole organization is just working endlessly on improvement. And so results, and sometimes teams have bad splits. I was thinking about the other day too, is like CLG and CLG when we played against them in promotion relegations, and my challenger team Academy was 1 game away from relegating them, right? And we had a 2-game advantage. Like, it happens. And now look where CLG is at. So, I just say that there's many chapters to a story, and this one is just a rocky one for us right now.
And that's got to be so frustrating for everyone on Team Liquid, because like he said, it's on paper they've got the right dudes. In scrims they're doing the right things. But there's a reason that we play the game. There are so many intangibles, things that you can't calculate. And if Steve's doing everything in his effort to get the best team down there, even as much as signing double lift for the remainder of that split, these are epic moves, and these are things that I love to see out of a manager, out of an owner, out of a CEO. Things like that for my team are incredible. But when it comes to whatever it is, they play the game, and of course there's going to be a winner and loser, and right now it's just not turning out in their favor. Josh?
Well, I guess my next question is then, Steve, I saw a thread, I think it was on the Team Liquid subreddit, that was like, listen, guys, Zhao is available to play in North America. And I love Zhao. I'm like LMQ fan for life. So I thought that was a cool thread. But I honestly have to ask, we are not going to have relegation in the traditional sense here, right? So what is there a point where you will bring in more talent if needed to help this team succeed.
More talent?
Well, we brought in Double Lift, right? So what I'm asking is, will there be a moment like that where we don't want 8th, or based on the fact that you can't, like, your spot doesn't depend on your placement, does that matter to you?
Well, absolutely it matters. Winning always matters, and that has been a driving force in why I've been so successful at signing marquee players at times where it was seemingly impossible to sign people like that. You know, when Edward was like a rising support star in Europe, and we managed to sign him, and won the world championship, and he just went to Curse, like, what the fuck, right? And Bunny Fufu, who was a support that was playing really well, and we signed him. You know, and the list goes on and on and on. And then, like the one that you mentioned with Double Lift coming in almost as a mercenary for our team when we needed him. Like, I get shit done, and I make marquee things happen. In this particular summer split, like, I will have to continue with that ferocity in making sure that we have our best foot forward. I have been under the impression that our best foot forward was the iteration of the roster that we started week 1 with, and you know, time will tell what is the best mix. And sometimes it's not like a particular player. Sometimes it's synergy. Sometimes it's communication, how people gel. It's a number of different things, and you have to factor in all this stuff when you think about it. But to answer your question, like, we will be doing everything we possibly can, and just because it's not your traditional promotion relegation, we are still absolutely motivated. Like, any kind of assertion or assumption that, you know, we're being not full guns blazing in the summer is just complete nonsense.
That's exactly what I wanted to give you a chance to speak to, Steve, because I think the fans want to hear that hunger. Because you showed it at the end of spring, right, with the Double Lift thing. I think a lot of people figured that we're going to see more of this, and it is only week 1. I have to give you that, right? Like,
if I was Steve, I would just be saying to the internet, just scream. The old man screams a cloud, just like, can you fuck off and let me do my job? Shit is good behind closed doors. It's just not paying off.
And that's actually what I want to ask about, right? Because we're only seeing week 1, and so any results we have, like, you know what I mean, like, TSM lost the game, like
Echo Fox is 2-0 right now.
Echo Fox is 2-0,
yeah.
And that hasn't happened. Like, nothing. Obviously, week 1 matters, but it doesn't. Like, it's not the be all and end all, and things can change and players can gel better. But what I'm wondering about, you know, obviously, like we said before, like, we're in kind of a precarious time for what teams will be around next split. Just, we don't necessarily know exactly how things are going to go down with the franchising system. You know, and there are people in our chat right now who are saying, like, we think, you know, I think Liquid's going to be around a long time. I just saw that flash up. You know, what perhaps I guess like, obviously there is the sense of we want to win here, but like, is there, I suppose, like, groundwork you can do for the future with this season, given that, you know, I guess the fans don't necessarily know what's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, we have for a long time been really apprehensive, and when I say we, I mean Victor and I, as well as now our new group of partners through Axiomatic, and we've been apprehensive about making substantial investments into League of Legends beyond what we would just kind of typically do, and a lot of that has to do with our permanency in the league. You know, why spend $2 million on a gaming facility for your players, or why, you know, provide equity to a franchise-like player, because you just don't know if you're going to be around in 3 months, right? And so now, if we are in franchise in 2018, we'll be able to make those substantial investments, and we are doing a lot of things to plan for that, and that includes the type of players that we would be able to sign. Going back to my bread and butter, like, if there's one thing I regret, it's moving away from the challenger scene. It's just been something that's been so core to my involvement in League of Legends, and you know, that decision to sell the challenger spot and just focus on the main team was I think a very big mistake. And I'm really excited to go back to having an academy team, and we just signed a facility that's right next to the Riot Studios. It's an 8,000 square foot gaming office that's being custom built for all of our players. So we're now gonna make big investments so that, you know, as this esports ecosystem, there may be like, you know, 50 teams or so. There's absolutely no way that those 50 teams are going to survive this next year or two, and we are very confident that what we've set up with our axiomatic group, as well as how prevalent we are in so many different esports, that we will not only, you know, survive this next phase of team ownership, but we will maintain our position as one of the largest.
And Steve, I got to ask you, you mentioned Challenger, you mentioned investment. Do you think that you missed the chance to get Echo Fox's meme team? How do you feel about that?
Oh, Jesus.
You know, I think it's fine. You know, it's a smart brand play for Echo Fox to gain fans. You know, I have always thought of the Challenger system as an opportunity to have players cultivate their skills and play and then potentially compete in LCS. And so, you know, the only negative thing that I'd have to say about it is that, you know, I kind of feel bad for the players that were playing in that Challenger scene and like put college on hold or left high school and, you know, then got subbed in for just a PR move. That kind of sucks. You know, I don't know what they're up to, or, you know, hopefully they're still getting an opportunity, and I'm making some assumptions because I just don't know what's going on. So please, you know, reserve that opinion based on like a lack of information. But, you know, I think it's a smart brand play. But other part of me feels like it's kind of, you know, it's kind of a toss away in terms of what the training grounds and the NACS is supposed to be all about. And so it would be kind of like in professional sports, like, you know, one of the D leagues or the promotion leagues, like, you know, putting in just like a brand play team, you know, kind of
Harlem Globetrotters in there.
About it. So
it's like getting an old timers hockey team, like bringing back all the old timers. So yeah, I get it. It's
yeah, but I mean, for the overall health of viewership and the league, I think it's great, right? Because people are going to
of course. And then therefore, Steve can get in an actual Challenger team where he can get, like, I guess, squads developed to do the feeder system.
I actually want to ask about that because, like you said, you're excited about having an academy roster again, and we're going to see sort of like a very institutionalized academy system. What would you want to see out of that? We don't have a lot of details right now, but what would you hope to see from like the new Challenger, the new academy system?
You know, I think one of the things that we participated in that was spearheaded by Riot's eSports department was the training grounds. And I'm not sure if you guys followed the training grounds, but it was really an opportunity for Challenger players that were not already on competitive teams, that did not have contracts already as subs on any LCS roster. They could show themselves in a combine-like system, and we had the opportunity of participating as like almost like a GM and coach role during the training grounds camp. And you know, there was like a draft where you got to pick players and you put together your team, and it was like, you know, picking in teams like dodgeball almost. And we put together a team and we ended up winning the training grounds. And I think you know, that aspect of building and cultivating talent, and people like Deathly that kind of rise to the top, or Omar God, who's currently jungling on CLG Black. You know, this has created an opportunity for those players to become visible who were just high-tier Challenger players. It's no longer just like who knows who, and like I bumped you into you at solo queue and I think you're good. You know, it's more metrics driven, and it's more if you play well and you get to the top of the ladder and you're recognized, you can come in and have a real chance of being picked up by a pro team. And so I think that almost feeder system from being a gamer in your house to being in LCS is absolutely clear in an academy scenario, assuming that teams use it for what it should be, which is developing talent.
And especially when you've got what people may perceive are like stage issues, obviously something like a Challenger Series would really help people get that experience under the belt.
Yeah, and I think speaking of scouting grounds, didn't Gabe go to scouting grounds?
I don't think Gabe was at scouting grounds.
We need Gabe here.
I thought he was.
Yeah.
I don't think he was. As far as I know, he
But
wasn't.
a very interesting system in order to
It's
figure
very
out.
cool. It's
yeah,
really cool. Yeah.
I mean, we see it all the time in traditional sports. Not only do you get based on your skill and like where you are in the league, you also get a chance to meet with GMs and maybe to do aptitude tests or personality tests or whatever. And the fact that people are going to have a more defined path, because I mean we've seen teams in Challenger, Fnatic Academy, just last promotion, they get there and then they don't get signed. And these guys who have been in the system, of course, in their contract that their job's not guaranteed, they would like to see a progression from, feeder system eventually to the LCS, and hopefully this new LCS franchising will be able to establish that.
And there were a few Challenger teams serving that role, one of which was Team Liquid Academy. At least in my opinion, there were plenty of players that passed through that system and then went on to play on LCS teams. And I mean, we're just seeing less of that now.
Yeah, and maybe we go back to a continuation of that. And
yeah, I hope so.
And just like Steven said, I watched an interview with him recently. I think it's something like 30% of the pro players have been through the Team Liquid system, which is impeccable. I mean, you've got to consider that Team Liquid is here for the long haul. They're here across all games, and when this NA LCS franchising happens, I mean, I hope to see them there personally.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, it's like a double-edged sword. I read a lot of comments that are like, well, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're just letting all these players go to other lose talent. And like, but the other side of the coin is that I have always taken an approach where I put the players first and I put their careers first, even beyond like retaining talent just for the sake of retaining them. And that's obviously bit us in the ass a little bit with regards to our level of competition and the depth of our substitute rosters, but it's also provided a lot of career opportunity for players. And I know many times, more than a dozen, that I just wouldn't even charge a buyout. I would just be like, oh, dude, you want to go play there? Like, go for it. Good luck. And that mentality, I think it's a double-edged sword, and that's why so many of these guys ended up going and playing on other teams, because I wanted what was best for them at the time and when we had to make decisions of one player or another.
And Steve, I've got to imagine with this new framework for the LCS franchising, again, assuming that everything goes well and Team Liquid gets in there, I mean, you've got to be thinking of the possibility that you're already there and then what? And with guaranteed player salaries, I think it's going to come down to not just, hey, can we, have the best contract for this player? It's going to be more about the holistic approach of Team Liquid, that facility that you just opened up, and all the other things that are outside of their guaranteed contract, which is, I think, is going to create parity in the league, and people are going to be able to choose the teams that they want, not just based on the money in their pocket, but based on the brand that they want to go with and the team they want to represent.
I actually want to jump on that, actually, because I think there's something really interesting that just happened, like news-wise. I think Axiomatic, the ownership group that you guys are partnered with, just brought on Jeff Vinnick, who is the owner of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and kind of I think he's investing in the Red Sox, among other things, a bunch of sports franchises. He's the new chairman of Axiomatic, or co-chairman. And I'm wondering, now that obviously there were plenty of sports folks in there before, but I'm wondering, does having somebody who has that experience with a franchise system within professional sports, does having somebody like that, kind of having an ear to somebody like that, just sort of help with building this process, figuring out what you want Team Liquid to look like in a franchise system? Yeah,
I mean, absolutely is the answer. So as evidence to that, let's start with like Peter. Peter is part owner for the Golden State Warriors, and he also owns Dick Clark Productions, which he recently did some things with. But he understands what it takes to win and a mentality to win. And so we've learned a lot from just talking with him and some of his staff, like Kirk Lakeup, who's the co-GM for the Golden State Warriors, and some of the methodologies that they use. And someone like Ted, who has ownership of the Wizards and the Capitals, has been really insightful in terms of the types of questions that need to be raised and discussed when creating a franchise based on his experience as a franchise participant in multiple different types of leagues. And so, being aware of those questions isn't really just because you want to like negotiate terms. It's so that you are a partner at the seat of a table, a round table with players and Riot and other teams, where you bring up really important aspects of what is going to define success for the league. And it's almost like you're like building a sculpture together, right? And you need to participate in that discussion. And so a lot of the management expertise and the experience and almost like the case study nature of the types of things that they've run into in the NFL really brings a lot of light and good construction to what that sculpture is going to look like, which would be the league itself.
And Steve, partnerships like that with people who have money, who are involved in traditional sports, already franchise stuff, whatever. I mean, of course, there's all the talk about vision and stuff like that. But in discussion with some team owners that we've talked to about this LCS franchising, it seems that not only does there need to be a partnership in terms of mentality, but there needs to be, it's imperative that the partnership is there for the money. They talk about a team like Team Liquid that, perhaps Team Liquid has the money to do it on their own. Do you foresee a problem with current LCS teams trying to make the application, or would it be imperative for them to partner with somebody who has the dollars?
Mm-hmm. I think there's one, Riot gave consideration to the payment schedule associated with the franchise cost for entry. And it's not just a $10 million check that you have to write before the start of the split. It's paid over time. And I think that is in part a consideration that was given so that endemic teams that may not have the ability to write a $10 million check can plan for how they can raise that money if they need to over time, and gives them the time to do so. And I think that was really thoughtful. And I think that some teams will have to go out and raise money and sell off equity in order to pay for the franchise fees. And if they do that, I have no doubt that there's going to be a ton of interest from the investment space and institutional and corporate and family offices and private investors that would be interested in doing those types of investments, especially given the fact that the franchise cost is, in my belief, significantly lower than what could have been charged and successfully sold by Riot. So here you have a league participation that is underpriced and has a lot of interest in a very hot sector. And I think that there's just a recipe for getting the very best partners and applicants to the league.
Steve, this is sort of a personal interest question, but I think it's something that our viewers might find interesting too, which is that when we first started to see some of the big non-endemics come into the space, like when we saw the Sixers, for example, and they acquired Dignitas, I had a discussion with their CEO, and he said that he felt like his experience with like league operations was going to be a big factor in the forthcoming discussion about franchising and the elimination of relegation. In your experience, were those players, those kinds of players, able to drive that conversation with Riot, or did that conversation happen internally at Riot, and then was it like then brought to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Riot's approach to this whole conversation has been collaborative, and so I haven't really felt like it's a negotiation or forced feeding. It's been much more an inquiry to teams and players on the things that they feel are important and relevant to the success of the league, and how they want and envision themselves as partners in something together with Riot and players. And with that, each of the teams have their own perspective and opinions, and I think that Riot, especially in TL and my perspective, Riot has absolutely been collaborative in listening to that in the design of the architecture that they outlined on June 1st. So, the short answer is that they've been collaborative. This wasn't something that they just kind of came out and told this is the way it is. I believe they truly want to build something together with somebody that is going to be a partner in the business. It's just like if you were to go into business with anybody else, like just for the same reasons that I merged all of my assets with Victor's assets to 2 years ago. You know, we saw ourselves as partners, like we were getting married almost. You know, I consider that I'm in a relationship with Victor.
A written bond.
In a relationship with a Nazgul, no less. A ring wraith.
No, so, you know, it's just, that's the kind of, I think of that same analogy when I think about going into business with somebody as a partner, is that you have to trust them and want to be in business and want to build something together, and you can't account for all aspects, and they, you know, each party brings their own skill set and contribution to the table in order to build something together.
Man, I want to see that sitcom now, though. I'm in love with a ring wraith. I don't know if we can get the rights on that. I don't know what the Tolkien estate charges for stuff like that, but that'd be pretty sweet.
I feel like the marriage aspect's already there. You have rings.
Yeah, there's a ring. Yeah,
it works. It's like it writes itself.
All right.
I'm submitting that one to Fox after this is done. I'm gonna pen that right away.
I actually do. I kind of have one more question just about the future of this stuff, and it's about the Players Association. And like I think you just talked about how you kind of want the you want to see that return of the academy team for the sake of getting to grow players and having that ability to have homegrown talent and have a field of players you can kind of choose from. I'm interested in the Players Association for kind of similar reasons, that we're seeing sort of a bigger emphasis, or hopefully a bigger emphasis on the players in this new system, treating them as an equal third of the system. You know, I'm wondering kind of as a team owner, as somebody who does do a lot, you know, kind of by your own merit, do a lot for players and having these kinds of facilities and just stuff I've heard from Liquid players in the fighting game community, you know, how do you feel about the Players Association as sort of what has been put out there, you know, the early state that we're going to see it in, something that's sort of kind of run by Riot, but hopefully will be given to the players? You know, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll first start off with a few perspective thoughts from the perspective of being a team owner. So first, I have, I think at this point, negotiated and signed contracts with probably, I don't know, 250 athletes in esports across various games. I have run across many, what I personally feel are just bad agents, bad attorneys, inexperienced, like, I even sometimes have felt like they're not even working in the interest of the player, like sometimes even incompetent. And it's frustrating because, you know, I can't tell the player, like, your agent's a fucking idiot. I just have to, like, work with that person. And you know, and I have enough business acumen to know that they're sometimes not great agents or attorneys. And so for me, having the Players Association and having a group of vendors and suppliers that are, like, vetted and just really looking out for the players' interests and negotiating those terms with teams is, like, such a blessing. It's like a breath of fresh air. And I love that. I think it's, like, essential to the construction of what ends up happening in the space. And so that is just so long overdue. Like, so from that aspect, I think it's great. I also think it's great for players to start to share the great things that some teams are doing that other teams aren't doing. You know, for Team Liquid, I think we were the first esports organization in League of Legends to convert our players from independent contractors to employees and provide benefits and food and investment stuff. And you know, I think that, you know, sharing those experiences within a player association so that other teams are also kind of providing that level of care and appropriate structure is important, you know, and setting that standard playing ground or that field by which players should be treated, I think, is really important. And I also have heard so many horror stories, you know, like the last being all that stuff with
The Oceanic League, the Tainted Minds?
OPL, yeah.
Tainted Minds, and after hearing all of that's still going on, those are all points that show how things could be and if there's not enough expertise in management and great advice. And so I think the Players Association will help create a new standard and a level of professionalism, which I think is going to be required in order to have big sponsor dollars and partnerships that want to participate in the league. So there's a lot of aspects to this that are not only great for players, but also great for the health of the league.
Yeah, and I mean, not only is it a benefit of the of the teams to have a players association, but it's also great for Riot. I mean, obviously, like in the account of Tainted Minds, Riot had to go in there and arbitrate and deal with fines and stuff like that. I'm sure they don't want to be doing that, and I'm sure that's something that just hurts the community. And again, like it might scare some sponsors off. So with this franchising, this has got to be a new age of eSports. Actually, I know, and League of Legends is the one that's driving it. Steve, thanks so much for coming on and taking time out of your day. Any last things that you want to say? Any last pieces for us?
Any trash talk for week 2?
Yeah, actually, Steve, are we going to see Golden Glue?
Trash talking right now. But I will say thanks for having me on the show. It was a lot of fun, guys. And for any of the fans that are going to watch this or watching live, I appreciate your support, guys.
And Steve, I got to commend you on the rainbow flag. TL loves esports equally. You're the man.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very near and dear to my heart, so thank you.
Thank you so much. You have a great weekend, and best of luck.
Okay, thanks, guys.
All right, see you later.
Bye.
And there you have it.
Wow, I'm really excited for week 2 now. I'll say that. I'm really excited for week 2.
I'm not excited for my fantasy. So
yeah, because you and I, sir, we have a fantasy bet, don't we?
What is it? What is this issue?
The issue is simply just that I'm going to lose.
Oh, why is that?
I bet really hard on G2 doing well against Fnatic, and they won, but Fnatic did better.
Yeah,
it's points wise, which is really all that matters to me.
And I got those old misfits, man. Very underrated guys getting points.
Sitting on my
all you
bench.
gotta do, listen, in fantasy, arrange by points per game last year. Hansama, what's up?
Yeah. I am actually starting a Liquid player this week.
Excellent.
I'm starting Lure Low top over Odoamne. So
that's why you wanted to ask about Golden Glue.
Did you just ask him?
I have Golden Glue on my bench actually. Yeah.
Did you ask Lurlo if he will get you points? Is that in the interview? I haven't watched your interview yet.
It might have been part that was cut out. So
Okay.
it's not in the interview, but I was like hook me up with the deets, man.
Josh, you're fucking worse than the NBA fucking referees,
Dude, I want
man.
to win. I want to win my week, dude.
You want to win your week. You also want to win some dollars, some side bets. What else you got going on?
I got cheated out of week 1. Perks didn't play. I deserve this.
Okay.
I deserve this.
Listen, we're talking about LCS franchising.
Collusion.
Exactly.
This is cheating.
LCS
We're moving to a
franchising.
new era, and you're dragging us back to the dark ages.
Yes.
I was like, how's your wrist feel, Lorlo? How's your wrist feeling, buddy? I need to know. I want to make sure.
No different than back in the day. People used to call down to, say, like the hockey arenas to try to figure out which goalie was starting. If it's ever the backup, that's when guys would jump on that betting line.
Yeah.
Inside information.
Yeah, the insider info.
Yeah, this fantasy league runs deep. Anyway, anybody want to say goodbye or like hi to their moms or anything?
We had a lot of people in chat.
Yeah, we did a lot of people in chat. Hey guys, guys asking for FGC content and me asking questions. I hear you. I asked Steve about those in an interview I did about 3 weeks ago on theScoreEsports.com. Go check it out. We talked about Knuckle and Hungry Box.
Also, me and Dan were both at the Smash Summit.
We were at Smash Summit. We were at Smash Summit 3. We were at EVO.
Yeah.
You weren't at EVO with me, but I was
Canada
at EVO.
Cup when Team Liquid Knuckle do.
Yeah, we've been there for all of Liquid's highs.
So we do appreciate your live chat, and trust us, we do like talking FGC, but today was all fantasy LCS.
Well, it's real LCS and the end of fantasy LCS.
Franchising, not fantasy.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for your time. Tune in again when we have another guest, and I will probably not be here because I said something bad, I'm sure.
Dan won't be here, but
definitely said something bad.
All right. That's it for the Score eSports podcast. I'm Josh Burry.
I've been Daniel Rosen.
I'm me.
Oh.
Oh.